that background. That's sweet. Makes a big difference. Good job. All right, cool. All right, so James is gonna is run this session with Trevor, and anyone who wants to do some more interview work, if you've heard Trevor already, you want to come into breakout room, I'll be in there. Thanks so much, everyone.
Well, Trevor, we'll go ahead and get started while those folks are heading over if they want to. So I'll get started with the intro. Please join me in welcoming Trevor, an U.S. Army veteran and dynamic project manager and innovator with a talent for transforming complex challenges into clear, actionable solutions. Trevor has led transformative projects like NV Kids and pioneered the U.S. launch of Tando, the first indoor-specific UAS. As a dedicated mentor, he guides transitioning veterans into tech and project management careers, leveraging his expertise in Agile, Six Sigma, and strategic leadership to drive impactful results. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Trevor Greenberg. Trevor, how you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for that intro. You make me sound like I'm going to give some words of wisdom that no one's ever heard yet.
Oh, I heard you last time, and I think you're going to do even better this time. It got me excited last time, and I'm ready for this one.
Well, hold on. Let me see here.
I want to point out we've talked so well about you so far. Only like 10 people have gone over into the other room. So you got a large group ready and excited to hear from you.
Oh, that sounds good. Just give me 1 second here. I actually have a presentation for this one.
Oh, nice.
But because it's Apple, everything has to work weird.
Of course.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's back that up. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about building relationships, not just networks. And these are lessons learned from my personal experience over a career, but majority of the last year. So who am I? I think it was James, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, as James said, I did 7 years in the Army, got out as a staff sergeant. I was in the infantry, did 4 years in the 82nd. So I like to jump out of airplanes. And I say I jumped out of Air Force C-130s, not perfectly good airplanes, because there are no perfectly good C-130s.
Ain't that true?
So after I got out, before I got out, I got my MBA while I was on active duty working at the Airborne School. I've got a PMP, Agile certification, Six Sigma black belt, all that fun stuff. I've been a PM for over 10 years, close to 15 years, worked in a variety of fields from healthcare, IT, retail, and emerging technologies. I was named a co-inventor on 3 U.S. patents when I was working on the interior drone project. And I'm the host of the Disgruntled PM podcast. I became a PM mostly by accident because when I got out of the military, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So, I got out with my master's degree, thought I was going to go be conquering the world. Everyone was going to be tripping over their feet to hire me. Yeah, that wasn't the case. I wound up taking about $8 an hour at the Auburn Student Athlete Library telling athletes to shut up. That was my first job with an MBA as a staff sergeant coming out of the military. I worked my way up to being an IT support person and then subsequently moved on to other roles. Now, my first professional role was working for a small specialty retailer by the name of Knukins, which is no longer in business. And that's kind of where I learned how to be a PM. But I really started my professional career when I worked for the VA. I went in there with a Six Sigma green belt that I got with my master's. So naturally, when I inquired about the Six Sigma program there, they were more than excited to have somebody who knew something. And I wound up starting to teach the Six Sigma program and also was given the ability to attend all the different courses all the way up to the Lean Six Sigma black belt. When I left the VA, that's when I started my career as a contractor. And when I say contractor, it's not like everyone here thinks of government contractor. These are third-party people where you work basically for a staffing agency on contract. And I say it's the worst kind of contracting because you can be told, we don't like the color of your socks. And then they call the agency and say, send us another. It really does suck in a lot of ways, but it gives you a lot of freedom. So what are we talking about today is my crash course. My first time my contract was unceremoniously renewed, I had to learn how to network. What is it? How do we do this? I started going to networking events and fumbling my way through things. And this was back in 2018, before a lot of the tools that are available now were available. I wound up finding out about this networking or mentoring program and saw the list of mentors. And one was a former Navy pilot who also got his MBA at Auburn. He worked at a healthcare company that subsequently recruited me through completely unrelated experiences. I told my mentor about the opportunity and who the hiring manager was. He sent an email over, and later on, I was offered the contract. Now, the two were not related at all, but it definitely didn't hurt to have a connection on the inside who was a director level person who could send that email to that VP and say, hey, Trevor over here is a good guy, talk to him, because that referral could be the difference between you getting the offer and not getting the offer. So now we're going to move into after that contract wasn't renewed, let's talk about how I really learned the true nuances of networking, because that's why we're here. Networking is not just collecting connections on LinkedIn or any other platform and just saying, I've got all these connections, what do I do with them? I wound up through networking and cold messages in a lot of different ways. When we decided to move to Kentucky from Tennessee, I didn't know anyone professionally in the state of Kentucky. So I'm coming up here completely blank. And this was back 2018. Started scouring LinkedIn, looking for anybody that had military recruiter that had a commonality with me of anything, whether it was they went to Auburn or San Diego State, they were military, they were in my fraternity, whatever it was. I had kind of a canned message that I sent based off of the person that I was sending it to, introducing myself. I stumbled onto a recruiter here in Louisville who responded to my message. She said her son's name is Trevor, and he was about to join the Army and go be a Ranger. So naturally, she wanted to at least talk to me. I found out that she knew every veteran in town, and she sent out one mass email blast with like 20 people on it introducing me. I then took each one of those emails and responded to each one individually, and at one point had probably 10 or 15 different email conversations going on at the same time. After a few emails with each person, I would say, hey, let's hop on a call and talk to them. Then through those meetings, people would say, hey, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Do you know this person? And eventually I wound up interviewing and was offered a role at Booz Allen Hamilton. They covered my relocation and sponsored my security clearance because I didn't have one anymore, and the role needed it. And this was all through networking without even setting a foot in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So it works. You've just got to play the odds and keep at it. So now let's skip some parts of my career and move to the present. Pretty impressive background, right? Lots of lessons learned, lots of cool stuff. Now, as James said earlier, I did bring the first interior-specific drone from Israel to the U.S. I was instrumental in bringing to market and the go-live of a new child support tracking system in the state of Nevada. In 2024, I went through 2 layoffs. I'm currently technically unemployed and have been so since October of last year. So I'm living the dream here, right? Why should you listen to me? Well, this year I've had to do a lot of learning and a lot of hard lessons because in January, I came to a soul-crushing realization. In my job search, I wasn't at 0. I was at a negative number because I spent Q4 of 2024 tapping all my go-to people. Hey, does anybody know anyone? Does anybody know anything? and it was too soon to go back to the well and ask them for help. So I decided it's time to tap into the most powerful network available that nobody seems to acknowledge exists, and that's the veteran network. Beginning of the year, I was on at least 3 calls a week networking through mentoring programs, attended all kinds of workshops. I was watching what people were doing on LinkedIn. I just started studying, learning, and developing my own style of how I wanted to do things. Now, the game changer is we are all part of the most exclusive networking group on the planet. This is the Veteran Network, because about 80% of the professionals out there who are prior service, those are the ones you want to talk to. Those are the ones that want to help. Those are the ones that understand what military service does for people. There's another 20% that, I'll just say it, they're all dirtbags. And we all know those people. We all serve with them. And you know what? That's okay, because we're not going to focus our energy or time on them because they're not worth our time. We focus on the ones we have something in common with to start with. Are they in your same branch of service, same MOS, same unit? These are all ways that you can build those bonds quickly and also build that credibility. When you're networking, and I hate that word networking, you're actually relationship building. Because when you start out these conversations, you're not reaching out to someone, asking them for a job or asking them for a reference. You're asking them for their time and to learn about them, learn their story. All the other stuff that you want can come later. You're not reaching out to people to be a taker. You're reaching out to be a giver.
Sinukat niya sa akin yun. Sa may garden area.
Can we mute whoever that is? So we're a unique bunch of people, and we identify with each other in unique ways. To give you some of these examples of how these connections are built quickly, I was on a networking site and I saw a name that looked familiar. The guy's face kind of looked familiar. And so I booked a call with him. And then when we started, he got on. I was like, before we get started, are you a White Falcon between 04 and 08 in Scout Platoon? It's like, yeah, I was, And then we recognized each other's names. We started talking. He was telling me about how he's up at Salesforce and he's doing all these big things. And he'd be happy to refer me for anything I wanted. And I was like, well, do you want to at least talk about my background or qualifications or anything? He's like, no, we served together. That's enough for me. Another example is when I was working for a major healthcare company, I was a contractor there, and I knew the director of the PMO was a former 82nd Aviation, and he took a lot of pride in being a part of 82nd Aviation because I think he was a brigade commander or something there. And I knew who he was. And one day I happened to be walking to my car, looked over, there he was walking to his car too. So struck up a conversation, just, hey, how's it going? I just had my son. It's the day, reminds me of the days back at Bragg where I'm chasing my coffee with a monster. He stops, looks at me. You were at Bragg? Yeah. And then we start exchanging Bragg stories. Hands me his card and says, let's go get lunch. If you're a project manager, especially as a contractor, do you think you want FaceTime with the director of the PMO?
Absolutely.
These are the ways that you build these relationships fast. I'll give you one more is I was doing some consulting work and I was asked to meet with somebody about their veteran program that they were trying to build. Did some research on the guy. It turns out he was a 82nd jump master. He was a rigger. So we started off the conversation and spent probably 20 minutes talking about being back at Bragg, being airborne, being a jump master. Fast forward now about 6 months, I asked the guy to come on my show because on my podcast, The Disgruntled PM, because he does a lot of work with organization development and stuff like that. And he said, he's now a CEO of another VSO, and he said he's turned down multiple people for interviews, but he's coming on my show because I asked him, and we share that bond. I'm telling you, I've got 30 other stories just like this where these bonds that we build, they're not just, they're real in the way that when you can identify with someone because we've all done the same suck. So So what is it that we're trying to do? We're trying to use these connections, but not abuse them. You want to focus on what's the commonality? How do we get these relationships? And also, how do we build those relationships just like we did when we do horse trading when you're in the military? Spouses, you're a part of this club too, and you get a bonus one because there's spouse support groups too. But the one thing I will caution spouses is, as a military member, I would say being proud of your service member is great. Don't conflate their service with your identity. There's a very fine line, and you can really destroy a relationship very quickly by not acknowledging that while you are the spouse and you were tangential, you were not the service member. So now that we've talked about kind of what these can do, how do we build them? This is where you have to figure out your own style and your own way of doing things. I personally use a different approach than what I'm going to talk about today, but that's because what I'm talking about is a very generic, very general, basic crash course in how to do this. You start out by using LinkedIn. That's your tool. That's my tool of choice, and that's where I would suggest everybody start. Target people, target industries. Use LinkedIn as a targeting tool. It's there. The information is public. Use it. Find the people you're looking for. Notice if they're active. Are they posting content? Are they connected with other people? If they are actively if they're posting, follow them and turn on that notification bell so whenever they post something, you see it. Comment on their stuff. Subtly make yourself known that you exist to these people, because if there's 10 comments on a post and you're one of 10 and you're seeing 2 or 3 times, guess what? They know your name. And I speak from experience on this because I see people popping into my comments and I notice when it's the same people or when it's somebody new. Then after you've commented a few times and you've seen their stuff, send them that connection request. Don't be afraid. Worst they're going to do is ignore it and say no. Best they're going to do is say yes. Now, here's where you got to do the hard part, where most people fail. And this is the part that really is the magic. You got to slide into their DMs and send them a message. Talk to them. Be genuine, be honest, and build a relationship. You can be looking for followers and building up your count. That's cool too. There's nothing wrong with that. But what you have to be focusing on is, if you're targeting people to get to know them, to ask them for something, you've got to give them a reason to want to help you. And that's not just, hey, let's connect. I can't tell you how many times people send me messages saying, we can improve your YouTube channel, or we can improve your metrics on your show. And I look at it, and all it probably is them hiring a bot farm that I could do myself if I wanted that. So one of the things you should be doing is every day spend at least 30 minutes on LinkedIn looking for people you want to get to know. Send those requests. If you're not working right now or you're looking for work, you should be maxing out your invite requests, because you can do it. I think you can send out 200, with premium, you can send out 200 connection requests a week. Do not let one of those go to waste, because law of averages is probably 60% of those people will ignore you. And if you're not vetting the people you're sending them to, meaning you're not seeing if they're active on the platform, if they're not active, you might as well just wasted that request, because that might not be seen for months. If they're posting content regularly, they're going to see it that day. You'll get a lot of non-acceptance. Don't worry about it. The ones who do accept, talk to them. Reach out. Say, hey, how are you? How's your day going? Hey, I really enjoyed that post about whatever it is. Let them know you exist, and let them know that you're paying attention. Because I can tell you right now that if someone says to me, hey, I really enjoyed your Movie Monday post about Top Gun today, they're going to get my attention. But if they say, hey, thanks for connecting, nice to meet you, I'll get to it when I get to it. So one thing to think about is, don't build yourself an echo chamber when you're doing this too. We all have career fields that we want to target, career fields we want to look at. expand your search out of that. If you are like, I'm a project manager by trade. If you look at my feed, half of it is marketing people. Because one, that's the fun side of LinkedIn. And two is, if you build an echo chamber, you're surrounding yourself with the same group of people and the same topics and the same conversations. When you branch yourself out of that echo chamber into other fields and you start talking to people that do other things, guess what's going to happen? You're going to become one of one or one of 5 of doing what you do. If I'm talking to all my PM friends about finding work, it's Ricky Bobby, it's Talladega Nights and Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you're last. So if I'm not top of mind when they hear about a role, it doesn't matter. But if I go to my marketing people and I talk to them about project management and what I do and how I do it and everything else, then guess what happens? I'm one of one PM that they know. So where would you rather have your odds? Surrounded by people who think they know what you do and you're one of 20 people that they know, or people that have no idea what you do, you can explain it, set yourself up to shine. And also, if you do it right, guess what? You're their first thought when they need something. So this also does twofold, because it also expands your horizons. If you want to know, if you're an HR person, do you want to know how to brand yourself? If you're an HR person, or if you're in marketing, do you know what a PM does? Learning about these different fields makes you more powerful in the fact that you can talk to what you do better. So I'm always looking for different ways of how to improve myself. And I meet a lot of marketing people, and that's the majority of my feed right now, because that's how I can learn how to better promote my content, my podcasts, everything I do. I'm learning from their expertise, just the same way that other people are learning from mine. So now let's go over how do you make your content? This is where you get to be yourself. Now, I'm not going to tell everyone how to do this, but I'm going to advise you on be yourself. If you're sarcastic, put a little sarcasm into your content. If you're a very thoughtful academic, make it very, very like that. Me, I like to have fun with my content. So I recently started a new thing called Movie Monday, where every Monday I come out with a movie and I break it down in the lens of project management. I did PM Monday that came to me in the shower one Monday morning of taking all these PM concepts that everybody talks about in the hallway. And unless you're a project manager, you really don't know what they mean. So I'm breaking them down for everybody else in the back in the room to understand, because all the PMs do. And by extension, that's also caused me to revisit the fundamentals and the basics and remember what they are. The only thing I will tell you about content is do not use AI to write a post, copy and paste it. And do not steal content. Inspiration is fine, but copy and paste is not okay. Inspiration is one thing, but theft is another. And I can give an example of that, where I made a post about a topic a couple weeks ago. I watched somebody the next day post about the same concept I did the next day, and the name looked familiar. So I went back to my post, and he had actually liked my post. Now, the thing that irritated me the most about this whole situation was his post was better than mine. But did he steal my content? No. And I had plenty of people that were ready to break out the pitchforks. I said, it doesn't matter. He didn't steal my concept. He didn't steal my idea. And how do I know he doesn't do what I do, which is I schedule my content out a week in advance. So when I got all my content for this week already scheduled and ready to go. You asked me what my post on Wednesday is, I couldn't tell you. So it could have been coincidence. It could have been inspiration. Don't worry about it. Do your own thing, stay in your lane. And I look at that as a sign of flattery that I'm on the right track, that somebody else is taking inspiration from me. So when you release your content, and people leave comments, respond to them. Let people know that if they took the time to comment, you took the time to read it and that you're engaging with them. That does a couple of things. One is it keeps your content fresh on the algorithm. And two is it boosts your metrics. Plain and simple. You see why people, I'm sure everyone has seen the post where the author will make 3 or 4 comments right off the bat, right? That's because of the metrics. That's because that creates that engagement. That creates that FOMO allegedly in the algorithm to get it out to more people. So let's talk video for a moment. Video is a big deal right now. Can you stare at your screen? Can you stare at a blank screen and articulately share your thoughts? You know, none of this has to be perfect. We just have to be good enough and professional-ish to present your image and present the image to the world that you want to share. You know, I'm stumbling a little bit here, and I'm fine with that. You know, you got to. One of the things that we're doing here is, as you're building this content out and you're doing all these things, you're establishing yourself as an SME, as an expert in what you do. It's not just about the content. It's about how that presents to you, because I've talked to recruiters. They go to people's LinkedIns. If there's somebody who's active, who's posting, who's got tons of content about what they know and what they can do and how to articulate it, they've got writing samples for you. They've got video of you talking. All of that goes into decision processes. If you've got nothing, then everything you've put down on your profile is a 50-50 crapshoot. So you want to position yourself as an expert in your field, and don't be afraid to go out on the ledge and take the occasional hot take. But be prepared for the criticism and the keyboard warriors to jump in the comment section. And don't delete comments. Don't be that person. Take the heat if you were wrong. You know, I've done it. I made a post about Agile a while back, and all the Agile evangelists came into my comment section and started roasting me. And you know what I did the next week when I did a post similar to when I had to make another post about Agile? I made a disclaimer in the first line saying, all right, last week was a little spicy. Let's calm it down this week and go more generic. And ironically, some of those people that roasted me, I talk to now as good friends. You know, this is how you're building your expertise, is not just in how you present yourself, but how you present yourself when people want to run their mouth and talk about you. And then this is how you get into sorry, brain fart. So this is also how you get into your reputation, because one of the things that we all got to remember is our reputation is not something that we create. It's something that everybody else around us creates, because that's how through your interactions is where your reputation is built. You could have, we've all met them, the spotlight ranger, the person whose outwardly appearance is all together, everything's perfect. And then when they open their mouth and start talking to you, you just look at them and say, what are you doing? You know, you've got to focus on all these different pieces of how to get this done. You know, when I was first thinking about posting content, I spent probably 3 months agonizing over my first post. And I was on a networking call with another vet. And he said, Trevor, you're an idiot. I've heard at least 10 great ideas for posts in the first 30 minutes we've been talking. So that afternoon, I made up my post. Now I post, I think it's 6 written pieces and probably 5 to 10 videos a week, including my podcast promotion. You know, there's a concept that I've written about previously called best versus best known. And this is the best example that I can use for this is hamburgers. I want everybody to take a moment and think about where you can go in town to get the best burger. Everybody got it in their head? Bet you didn't think of McDonald's, did you? McDonald's is the best known burger in the world, but it's not the best tasting burger in the world. And this is where you have to figure out, how do you balance those two things? Because you've got to build your base of expertise with your content, and then concurrently make yourself known as the expert with the people around you. None of this is nuclear physics, but it's all stuff that you don't hear about because everybody wants shortcuts. The shortcut is, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. I spend on average about 3 hours a day on LinkedIn, whether it's posting, commenting, interacting, preparing content, all that stuff, because I want to be known as both the best and the best known. But I spend that 3 hours throughout the day, not just in one sitting. This is an investment in your overnight success, because every overnight success is 20 years of working your butt off the night before. Every sergeant major or every high-ranking officer spent years getting to that point. It's not just an overnight thing. They didn't enlist to become a major. So I want everybody to think about that. This is how we do this. I started my podcast because I was challenged to face my fears. But I kept doing it because it showcases my expertise, and it's a platform to not only elevate me, but it elevates my guests that I bring on. I use it as a networking tool. I've gotten access to CEOs, influencers, all kinds of people that I would have never gotten because I have a podcast. I've had very influential people on LinkedIn. I'll talk to them for a little bit, and I've had people point blank ask me, when are you going to invite me on your show? That's a powerful tool to have in your back pocket when you're trying to network, isn't it? Having people come to you. I've gotten all kinds of people. My guest this week is a retired one-star general who was also deputy police chief of Seattle PD. Last week I had the FBI sleep expert talking about sleep. Where this is how this stuff happens is you got to build these networks and talk to people. Because when you talk to them is when they actually acknowledge you exist. So the focus of my show is presenting project management in an approachable and entertaining way. I say this is not the show if you want to learn how to pass the PMP, but you want to hear from real experts and relate their experience to the field of project management. Now, let's go back to content for a minute. I want you to think about if you were a recruiter or the person you were targeting to respond and their response to your content. When you're posting content, you want to think about how is it perceived on the outside world? How is it perceived by your target audience? This is where you need to be focusing on your energy if you're doing this content. I see a lot of people posting about a lot of different things, but my opinion is be yourself. Post your own stuff. Don't chase shiny object syndrome, and don't chase whatever is the latest and greatest thing that people are talking about today, because by the time you catch up, something else, they moved on to something else. If you keep staying in your lane, eventually your audience will find you, you'll find your audience, and then you don't have to chase anything. So here are a couple of things that I want you to think about as you're leaving this talk. Be a giver instead of a taker. The more you give, the more you get. If you're willing to give out that free content, people will come to you and they will find you. There's definitely a time to take, but you've got to go into conversations thinking, what can I offer you? And learn about the other person rather than asking for things. Be a connector. Build those relationships by offering your network to other people, because you never know what connecting two strangers can do, how it can impact their lives and yours. Because going back to that networking piece and that reputation, I actually had a situation where I was looking at getting into business with someone and I wasn't sure about it. And the guy was in the Air Force and his business partner was not military. I talked to them a little bit, didn't really know them super well, but I found out that the guy in the Air Force knew somebody that I knew very well. So what do you think I did when I hung up that call? I reached out to our mutual friend and I said, hey, what do you know about Steve? Oh, Steve's awesome. he's on the board of my charity. You know, he helped me found this, he helped me do that. Oh, okay. So Steve, my money is safe with Steve. That's a pretty powerful tool to have there, to be able to trust someone, knowing that someone else you trust knows them. So another thing to think about too is, don't be afraid to engage with people in the comment section. A couple weeks ago, someone made a funny post about cats and I commented on it. Started making jokes with someone in the comment section, going back and forth. DM'd that person and then found out, oh, hey, she's looking to study for the PMP and learning how to be a project manager. So I referred her to a friend of mine who teaches for the PMP course. These are all ways that conversations start, but you have to start the conversation. Don't rely on other people to come to you until you become that best known part where you're attracting other people. Because when you get to that point, you're still going to be looking for other people to have those conversations with, to level up. So if you network, don't make things transactional, because that's the way people are going to view you. Remember, your reputation is built by the people that you interact with and what they think of you. This is how they reference you. The military community is small, but word gets around quick. And trust me, I've seen it and I've lived it. You know, there's a certain well-known influencer on LinkedIn in the military space. Every time I talk to people, they ask me, oh, do you know this person? And I say, I know him, and I think he's a jerk. And every other person I've talked to says he's a jerk. But outwardly, he's Teflon, he's perfect. But nobody likes this guy in private conversations in the industry. And there's another person, same industry, that nobody likes that guy either. And I say, well, at least he's a jerk up front. And everyone's, yeah, that's true. So think about your reputation, not just what you're presenting on the outside, but how you're interacting with people on the inside, because the private conversations are where things happen. It's been proven time and time again, your next opportunity is not going to come from your first connections. It's going to come from your second and thirds. And those are the people that want to vouch for you and want to make those introductions. So what have we talked about today, and how do we sum all this up? Get on LinkedIn. Make your target list of who you're looking for. Interact with their content. Send those connection requests. Slide into their DMs. Offer to help. Because every interaction I have with someone in my network when I first meet them, I always say, hey, if there's anyone that I have in my network and I know them, I'm happy to make the introduction. Subscribe to the Disgruntled PM podcast and subscribe to my Patreon. Okay, the last two are optional, but you see what I did there. Throughout this talk, I've mentioned my podcast multiple times, and that's a key point that I want to hammer home at the end. And that is that if you don't promote yourself, who will? You know, I want you to take away from this that embrace the veteran network. It's your most valuable asset. Build relationships. Don't just network. Be a giver, not a taker. Leverage LinkedIn. Be active, be engaging, and be authentic. And lastly, and the most important thing of everything, is promote yourself. Because if you're not promoting yourself, nobody else will. And I'll finish this up with a quick story of last week. Actually, somebody that I talked to, had a really great conversation with her, and we've been talking for about a month now. She made a post about inspirational people in her network. I wasn't in there. I just popped a comment in saying, hey, it was great talking to you last week. Really enjoyed getting to know you and look forward to getting to know you more. She then edited her post and said, how could I have forgotten about Trevor and the great conversations I've had with him and how great he is? You know, I didn't have to do a thing other than what I would normally do by commenting on her post. And I just got the endorsement. So remember that there have been plenty of times where people have posted about things and I know them and I know their personality. So I might comment saying, hey, what about me? Like, oh yeah, forgot about you. Because when you've got a big network, you've got hundreds, if not thousands of people you're talking to in different nesting dolls of relationships. So you don't always think of everybody. But when you jog their memory that you exist, it's, oh yeah, that person's awesome. They're just buried in my chats because I've got 20 other people that I chat with. So how can you interact with me? Obviously, send me a connection request on LinkedIn. I accept all. Follow my podcast. I've got Movie Monday, which I just started a few weeks ago, where every Monday I break down a modern movie and I analyze it through project management principles. I did Gone in 60 Seconds. I did Rounders. This week was Top Gun. It's just something I have fun with. Every Monday, if you want to learn about the basic fundamentals of project management, I do PM Monday. I've got, I think I'm breaking 30 weeks now where I've been doing that. And that's just basics of project management in easy to understand language. There's no context. There's no thought-provoking vernacular. It's all just basics. So, questions?
Does anybody have any questions? If now's the time. So while we're waiting on other people, Trevor, I want to say thank you. I got a question I saw in the chat earlier is a lot of people, we say send out a ton of requests, send out the 200, max it out every week. And you say focus in on a specific area or sector of business that you're looking to go into and try and get those connections. A lot of people, I've seen it a couple times in the comments, they just send it out to everyone, anyone and everyone. And a lot of us, Seven Eagle and Allegiant Vet folks, we send it to all of us that are in these program. Do you suggest focusing in on a certain sector or just send out as many as we can to kind of like a shotgun blast?
Well, I think you need to be strategic about it because I learned in the very beginning, I was just sending out connection requests to anybody that looked interesting. And I am not shy about this, and it's very public knowledge. I'm trying to grow my network. I've doubled it in size in probably the last 4 months. And one of the things I do when I'm looking at people to send my request to is, are they active? Are they present on LinkedIn? Because if they're not present, then you're just sending it to a black hole and hoping that in 3 months it might come back to you.
Yep.
It really comes down to in my opinion, what are your goals of what you're trying to do with your connections? Because I had one person I sent the connection request to, and then she sent me a message saying, let's hop on a call because everybody in my network I know personally. And then I've had people where they blindly say yes. I'm one of those people where I'll blindly say yes. I'll check you out. And there's an ongoing debate amongst whether you send a message or not with your connection request. That's a personal choice, in my opinion. I do not, because one of the strategies I've used is if I send a request, what's the natural instinct that someone's going to do when they see that request? They're going to click on my profile and look at me, right?
Yep.
But if I send a message saying, hi, I'm Trevor, I'm a Army vet looking to connect with other PMs, they might not go to my profile because I've already told them what I'm looking for.
No, I appreciate that. Michael, I see you got your hand raised. What you got?
Yeah, Trevor, welcome back. For sure. Question I have is more just like, can you go over first, especially for folks that are new to the program since you were on last, and talk about your strategy with your images?
Yeah. So my images, I was told a while ago, images get better traction on posts. So I started using an AI tool to create images and just stumbled onto using cartoon animals for all of my posts. And then after a while, a couple of people even said to me, they're like, yeah, I know it's yours because it's got a very distinct very distinct cartoon animals. So since I've been told that by multiple people, every single time I put my content out for my written pieces, I try and I use that same profile, that same similar prompt to create those cartoon animals because the people that want to see my content look for those animals to see there's Trevor's post. And I'll share something else that's relatively new to me is there's another ongoing debate about emojis in your name. I added a bacon emoji in my name probably a month ago. I've had more conversations about bacon than you could ever imagine, but it's a conversation starter. And what are we trying to do? If you're trying to get attention, you're trying to get conversations going. Yeah, I mean, and here's the funny part is it doesn't work all the time. A friend of Jonathan, to your point, a friend of mine, very good friend of mine actually, he really likes tacos. And I told him about this, so he added tacos. And I asked him, has it helped you? He said no. But it's really just, and I've had people asking me, so what's the bacon? Is it because you cure chaos or you make content that sizzle? I'm like, no, just like bacon. You know, you don't need to have a fancy backstory for things. And this is all stuff that no one really talks about in this community because everyone wants the hacks and the secrets to grow on LinkedIn, but they don't want to put in the work. And the work is posting consistently, getting it done, and adding value to others. Because if you're just out there consuming, that's fine. But you're not going to get known as that best known along with being the best. Because if you're the best in your field and nobody knows you exist, you don't. We ask why certain musicians or certain things become trends because they just got popular by people that listen.
Appreciate it, Michael. Clayton, what you got?
Just a quick question. So a lot of us, or some of us, I should say, are trying to become project managers or portfolio managers.
Well,
and we don't have the PMP yet.
Let me just stop you right there. A project manager, program manager, and portfolio manager are three entirely different career fields. They're entirely different jobs. They are not synonymous. I want to make that part crystal clear before you proceed because they are not the same job. They're completely different.
So the question actually is a little bit more straightforward, but do you have any recommended avenue for folks to get their PMP? Because there are a lot of resources out there.
I do. And his name is Chris McPhee. He's on LinkedIn. He actually was tagged in my Top Gun post this morning. He's a retired Green Beret. He's a very, very good friend of mine. And that's what he's dedicating his future to, is teaching the PMP.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any more questions?
You guys
Well,
are making
Trevor,
this easy on me.
I know I told you 30, 45 minutes, so I want to be true to my word and not keep you too much longer. I appreciate you coming out again and dropping a ton of knowledge on us, especially with LinkedIn stuff. We're always talking about LinkedIn in here with Jordy. And it's always good to get different perspectives on it. So one last call for questions. And if not, Trevor, again, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Oh,
Hold on, I'll put it in the chat.
There you go. If you haven't done so yet for 7 Eagle folks, please do your end of day form, and then also Allegiant Vets, make sure you go in there and post your code at the time.